Let's hit it. Hoot Productions presents the Sports Deli Podcast, where everyone deserves a seat at the table, where we discuss the intersection between race and sports, mental health, leadership, and equality. To find out more about the Sports Deli Podcast, check us out online at thesportsdelipodcast.com. And now, whether you're folding laundry, driving, exercising, or cooking, grab your favorite deli sandwich or bagel and your favorite beverage, and let's do this together in the Sports Deli. Auntie, take us away. All right. On this 22nd day of Military Family Month, we welcome Chris Singleton. His incredible mother, Sharonda Coleman-Singleton, a hugger and a pastor, was unfortunately taken from us too soon in the Charleston church shooting. Chris called it unthinkable and the darkest moment of his life because she was taken from him because of the color of her skin. But he used her death to become an inspirational speaker and write his new book, Different, which is a beautiful book that teaches kids that differences, whether through race, nationality, gender, and more, are something to accept and celebrate. You can find him on Instagram and Twitter at the letter C, Singleton _2, where he has almost 45, that's what blows my mind all the time, 45,000 followers. And on Instagram at Love Your Neighborhood, just like it sounds, and at loveyourneighborhood.com and at chrissingleton.com, where he shares his message with over 60 organizations annually. And his clients include Boeing, the Houston Texans, Microsoft, Volvo, the Washington Wizards, and more. And you can buy some of his amazing gear also, I might add. So, Chris, can't thank you enough, man. So you were in the South growing up. So 25, you look like you're still 16. But I'm sure you hear that all the time. You got that baby face. So how was it? Because this is always interesting to me, because I was integrated in 5th grade in Detroit. So how was it for you being in the South? Do you identify as African American or person in the Black and brown community? Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it growing up, and what kind of support system did you have?
Yeah, man. It was, for me, I was pretty privileged growing up as far as being in and I was born in Atlanta, had both my parents, went to college, right? Grew up in the suburbs, right? Didn't miss meals or nothing like that, but I loved the sport of baseball. And I always share that in Atlanta, where I was at, we had all Black baseball teams everywhere in Atlanta where I was playing. Yeah, man, it was huge.
In the 90s?
No. So 90s,
yeah,
and early 2000s.
Wow,
all Black baseball teams, 100%.
That's fascinating. Were whites allowed, or it was just the way it was?
Yeah, you go to Atlanta, it's a lot of African Americans that are living there, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about baseball and the places where I was living, this is suburban areas. They're pretty nice areas, but we had all Black baseball teams. And I think I had, once I started playing travel baseball, then you see not as many African Americans playing, but we still had an all Black team that was playing travel, that we traveled to different places and play them. But for me, it's funny that you talk about Detroit. My father is born in Charleston, and his best friend, my godfather right now, his name is Robert Porcher. I'm sure you've heard of who he is.
Oh, yeah.
Played, defensive end for the Lions for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Him and my dad were best friends in college, and he's my godfather now. Super close with him. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to be my co-host when he comes on the show.
Okay. Absolutely.
So let me ask you a question. My youth coaches impacted me tremendously growing up. And so I'm curious as to know, because I want to get into why there's not more African Americans playing baseball. I know the obvious reasons, but you played at a time where it was popular, and now it's not more popular for people of color. So what were the reasons that you got into it and didn't play, the traditional mainstream sports like football or basketball?
For me, man, and I'm a young guy, right? Most people look at me and they say how young I am, but
yeah,
I another thing about me, I lost both of my parents pretty young, so I been taking care of my brother and my sister. They're in college now, and so
wow.
I've had to grow up pretty quick. Married with 2 kids, right? To my high school sweetheart. But I am young, right? Born in the 90s. And for me, I think when I was playing baseball, I played all sports. It wasn't just, hey, pick a sport and stay there. It was baseball, basketball, football, the 3 main ones that we play. And so I was playing all 3 as a kid.
Wow.
I've seen nowadays a lot of parents are hyper focused on, you know, hey, he plays, this is what he trains year round on, right? This particular sport.
Yeah.
Another thing for me, rec ball was huge. And I think over the last 15 years or so, rec ball has become, you know, started to dwindle, unfortunately.
Talking about basketball?
No, baseball.
Oh,
Rec
baseball too.
Yeah, man.
I didn't even know it exists. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't even know. Yeah. It's all organized and it's so different now.
Yeah, it used to be when I was coming up, it was rec baseball, and they just started travel. When I was in, you know, middle school was when I really started going hard with travel baseball. But in the back, you know, they used to just play recreation. You'd have Legion teams. You'd have,
Right.
you know,
Connie Mack.
yeah, you Pee Wee baseball, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, Dixie Majors, all that kind of stuff that you'd play. Little leagues. There's not even a lot of people. Little leagues are going away now, unfortunately, which is sad to see.
It is.
We see the Little League World Series, but we don't see the numbers of little leagues that are stopped. They stopped playing because of all the travel baseball that's happening now.
So is that the main reason why you don't see the numbers up, especially with people of color, because there's not academies or more clinics or, you know, introducing grassroots level kind of things?
I think, you know, over the last 2 years when I stopped playing baseball, I've been working with Major League and their, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion team.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do like small play ball events where they introduce the sport to kids. What you'll see in baseball is what's different than basketball or football is in football, you're given all your stuff, right? You're given your helmet, you lease your helmet, you lease the pads a lot of times, at least when I was playing. In baseball, now, you know, a bat costs $200, right? A glove is $100. You know, spikes, cleats are $50 to $100, and you can't play by yourself. You know, in basketball, you go out there, you can shoot around by yourself. In baseball, you need somebody else to be there. And unfortunately, in some neighborhoods, right, it's like if I need a bunch of other people to play with me, I don't know if I'm playing that. I might just go out there and shoot around if I got two other people with me and play that way. So that's some of the things that we've seen that make it a struggle. And nowadays, if you're playing baseball and you're an African American, you can't just play like football. You can get a scholarship from playing high school football, right? Because there's no travel. You play 7-on-7 or whatever. Basketball, you know, you usually play travel nowadays. But if you go off in high school, you still got a chance.
Right.
Baseball, it doesn't matter in high school unless you're throwing 95.
Right.
Hitting 40 home runs in a season, then you got to play travel baseball, which is too expensive for a person like me that grew up, you know, after my father struggled with a single mother of 3. We couldn't afford travel baseball.
Right.
My mom would always say, if you're good enough, they'll see you. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case in baseball because college coaches are going to the tournaments where they see 50 good players instead of a high school game where they see 2.
That's interesting. So it seems like Major League Baseball dropped the ball for 2 decades from my perspective. And I grew up in Detroit, right? You know, Ernie Harwell, Paul Carey announcing the games, Chet Lemon, you know, guys that were right after, you know, the Rod Carews, you know, Ozzie Smith came later. You know, these guys were people that I just like, I was in awe of. Like, I just wanted to be like these guys, you know, Alan Trammell, Lou Whitaker, you know, all the Tigers, Kirk Gibson, you know, Dave Rozema, Mark the Bird Fidrich, you know, the other stuff was the thing, right? The other sports were a thing, but baseball, it truly was America's pastime. And I think baseball has dropped the ball for the past 2 decades, and there's blame to go all the way around, I think. Yeah. But, you know, to recapture 2 decades is difficult. And so where do you think Major League Baseball needs to go from here? Does I'm not a fan of Rob Manfred. I got to be honest with you. And so I know you gotta be smart about things, but you know, and look, I give people grace, especially during this pandemic. You know, it's not an easy thing to navigate. These spaces are difficult, but I think it's been more reactionary than taking action in advance and being forward thinking, you know, that type of thing. And so that's been the frustrating part. You know, they have their television deals, and, you know, that's why people can be paid large sums of money still as we, you know, approach this collective bargaining, you know, impasse that we're facing coming up here. But, you know, where do we go from? Does someone like Ken Griffey Jr. need to be the commissioner? Sponsored by PSK. You can find them online at lids.com. pskcollective.com, tjmax.com, walmart.com, and now Kohl's Department Store at kohls.com. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
Yeah, I like that, man. You talk about one of the greatest players of all time, the best swing of all time, if you ask me.
At least from the left side of the plate, him and Barry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But you know what I think, man?
Tony. Yeah.
I was talking about this. I did a Yahoo interview recently about baseball and the lack thereof and, neighborhoods with kids that look like me. And I think, number one, back when the days you're talking about all those players, man, people knew about them. They were always marketed well, right? We knew about them because we'd see them everywhere. Right now, we got players like Tim Anderson that is just tearing it up, and I don't see him on very much, right? I should see him everywhere. A little black kid like me growing up, and I see Tim Anderson. He's got the swag. It's not like he's, a different. He looks just like some of the kids that we want to serve in these communities.
Tatis.
Tatis. Well, Tatis is Latin, but I think.
But still.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I mean, we have no shortage of Latin players. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
We got a shortage of black players in the league. And even looking at it as a spectator, you see some darker skinned guys, and a lot of times they're Cuban or Dominican, which is great having them in our game. But one of my goals is to get little black kids from Detroit, from Chicago, from Atlanta playing baseball, and seeing Tim Anderson on a billboard or seeing him in a commercial for MLB, man, that would light me up. Not just seeing Bryce Harper, of course, and Mike Trout, which are obviously stars in our sport, but seeing Tim Anderson, seeing Kyle Lewis win Rookie of the Year out in Seattle, like people like that, celebrating that more would be huge, if you ask me.
Is there just apprehension because there's, people are successful only 30% of the time if they're lucky, and so there's some apprehension as to whether or not you can be all in with people until you really know after 3, 4, 5 years? Yeah,
I think after 3, 4, 5 years, you can tell if a player is going to be good or not, though.
Yeah, for sure.
And in Tim Anderson's case, if I'm MLB making a marketing plan, and I think next year they're actually rolling out more stuff targeted towards African American players, especially African American communities, especially in the minor leagues. I know they're doing it in the majors, but the minor leagues, which is even more teams. I've seen that they have a plan of doing stuff around people like Larry Doby and Jackie Robinson, and teaching that in the communities, and kind of, pushing that down the pipelines, saying, hey, this is what we want to roll out for you guys to do in your markets, which I'm looking forward to. That they're trying. I see that, and that's happening next year, but we'll see how it goes. And if it's just something that they just did just to do it, or if it's something they're putting resources in and a lot of time behind.
Do you think pushing longevity could help the younger generation to say, the NFL only has a 3-year window, and the NBA is tough, there's only 12 guys on a roster plus 3, but Major League Baseball, there's, whatever it is, 26 people on a roster, 28, and your body's going to be intact when when it's all said and done. Is that something that could be pushed? Deli is sponsored by Moolah Kicks. Moolah is MOOLAH, like money, moolah, and kicks like shoes, one word. You can find them online at moolahkicks.com, and it's the first ever female-only brand basketball shoe. So it's a shout out to the basketball street culture, and it is also about fighting social injustice and gender inequality worldwide and here in the United States. And again, you can find them at Dick's Sporting Goods, where you can find them online at dickssportinggoods.com and at moolahkicks.com. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
Yeah, I definitely think it can be pushed. A lot of times when I was coming up, people would always say, baseball is where the money's at, man. You get big bucks there, and it's like, maybe that was the case now, but basketball, they're making a ton of money, right?
Yeah,
so I think representation matters too. The reason why I'm so big on the marketing piece is because if I'm a kid seeing Ken Griffey Jr., I saw Andrew McCutchen. He was my guy that I want to be like, right?
Right.
And I think we need, he was everywhere for a little period of time. And we got to start bringing that back when we have players that are of that, caliber of a player. You have to show that to everybody. Longevity is cool. You can pitch that, but if I don't see myself in those shoes of somebody else playing that sport, then I'm going to say, yeah, longevity is huge, but that sport's not for me. You want to see somebody looking like yourself doing it. So it comes back to just making sure that, people like the Players Alliances, they've done a great job trying to spread that message of kids that look like them can do it.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to representation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a word that I was just going to use, was representation. And so I want to ask you about the whole All-Star game, and Bob Nightingale's coming on in a couple weeks. And I don't always agree with some of the stuff he says, but there's been some stuff said, obviously the All-Star, for those of you that don't know, the All-Star game was pulled from the state of Georgia. And you want to explain that? And then, because some people don't necessarily know what happened or why, they pulled it out. And there's been a lot of other things that have happened in terms of advocacy with the WNBA and the elections last year in the state of Georgia, which I'm sure you found very interesting, that the impact of the women of the WNBA impacted 2 elections, forced an owner out of the WNBA. And so these are things we didn't see even 5 years ago. But since the murder of George Floyd, we are seeing a lot more mobilization of whether it's police departments, or it may be slow, it may be breadcrumbs, but I definitely see more white allies and more mobilization. How do you feel about that, especially the All-Star game in particular?
Yeah, I love that you use the word allies. I frequently say, man, I'm not huge on the cancel culture, but I'm huge on people being held accountable, right? So if there was somebody listening in, or a phone was just recording you on accident, and you say some things that organization doesn't represent or doesn't want to represent, and you get held accountable, I think that's totally fine. I don't want my son cheering for a player that I think, has no character,
or coach.
Yeah, or coach, or, even a coach or player that wouldn't be cheering for my son because of, the things he said, whether he was supposed to say it on air or supposed to have it in an email, whatever it may be. There has to be some repercussions because of that, but also teaching in those moments too. And I don't think it should just be the end all be all. But I'll say in cases like, what happened with the All-Star game, cases like players, not wanting to play. I think there's 2 things that are happening. Players are realizing how important they are when it comes to more than just their sports, right? Because you look at LeBron, he's got more followers than the NBA itself by tenfold, right? And so I think that's huge. And I also think that communities are seeing, hey, we hold some power. So if we say, we don't stand for this or stand for that, you'll lose money. And when you lose money, that's when people start to make changes.
Well, you're not an outlier anymore, right? There's strength in numbers, right? And there's been people for decades that have been doing this, Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown and plenty of others, Colin Kaepernick, and then the murder of George Floyd. And it just came to a boil, obviously, where everybody saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I think that people like LeBron, I remember LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and a couple other players did something. I think it was at the ESPYs or something years ago. And they basically made a stance. And now when you have your biggest and best players taking a stance on different topics and subjects, that gives you, like, as a player, you think, okay, maybe I can share my truth now because I don't feel like I'll be, blackballed. I may not be at the LeBron level, but man, I feel like I know my voice matters now, and I won't just be, shoot away or shut up. Although it may happen in players with the G League or whatever may happen, but now players are seeing that they have more power. And they're using it. I think they should, man. Players have so much influence over not just their sport, but over little kids that are listening. And so if you have a parent that's been teaching, little Timmy hatred his whole life, but he sees, Derek Carr talking about loving people and coming together.
Right. Absolutely.
He's going to say, man, I hear what my dad's saying, but my favorite player is Derek Carr. And he thinks we should come together as a unit. And that's the kind of person that I want to be. There's power in that. And I think players are finally starting to realize and utilize that power.
Yeah. And Derek Carr is a white quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders, for those of you who don't know who that is. So talking about allies. And yeah, that's fascinating. And representation, is so important. And so, the All-Star game was pulled, and then Atlanta wins the World Series, right? And so you have sort of this dichotomy of things going on where they pulled it, but then they're still playing their games there in the World Series. How'd you feel about that?
I think I don't even think that was talked about a lot, to be honest with you.
No, it was
Right?
not.
The fact that they pulled that, but then they allowed them to have the World Series. I don't even know what the legal. I don't know. I don't even know if they would be allowed not to play the games there legally. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think a lot of fans, they still showed up for those games.
Yeah.
And so I think there's really, if you say you're going to do something, you got to stick to it. When there was players that said or people that were saying I'm not watching the NFL until this is fixed, or this is changed, and they actually did so. I think there's power in that. But if we say something and our actions contradict it, then we're not moving the needle forward at all.
Yeah, I've been critical of, Aaron Rodgers for obvious reasons recently, but I've been very critical for the last 2 years since I started this of Tom Brady. And people have come on and didn't necessarily agree with me, but like Andre Rison came on, and said, look, he hands the ball off to a lot of black people. He's got a lot of black people blocking for him. He's thrown a lot of touchdowns to black people. And I'm like, that's great, but he hasn't stood up and said Black Lives Matter publicly. And he's got a MAGA hat in his locker. And Jim Trotter said, just stay out of the way if you're not going to publicly, which it's his right. It's anybody's right to not be public about something. But we used to criticize Tiger and Michael Jordan a shit ton for not doing more in their communities. And so I think it's only fair to criticize, him, for example, and there's others. And there's white allies too, JJ Redick, and, like Bruce Maxwell was on this show, and he was the first African-American to kneel in Major League Baseball. And he's taken a hit. He's been traded. You can say what you want about it. He was very direct about it and said, I've definitely taken a hit as a result of this and almost committed suicide. And so, we have to make sure that we're aware of the byproduct of these things. But you're right. I think more people now speak out because of all of that. Sports Deli is sponsored by Sport RX, the leader in sport prescription eyewear. You can find them online at sportrx.com, and don't forget to enter the code DELI10 at checkout for your special 10% discount. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli. Yeah, and I'll also say with Tom Brady, with the hat, man, I think it was disrespectful. I don't think there was any other way to say that. In a position of leadership like you have, number one, you would hate to see that as a black, teammate. I think for me, in my case, man, I've met Tom Brady before. After my mother was killed, the Patriots flew me and my brother up to meet all the players. Wow. And you talk about an awesome guy in person who talked to us for probably 20 minutes and signed the football. I was kind of hurt when I saw that hat in his locker, because he was such a great dude when we met him. So that one kind of stung a little bit because he's one of my brother's favorite players. But I have seen, unfortunately, where people, like I mentioned, not like the LeBron, because you can't do anything to LeBron, but some players that are not of that caliber will kind of take a stance, and they know, right? They know what the repercussions may be, but they're that bold in what they're trying to do. So even when I go to speak in different places, like my one non-negotiable is that I have to talk about race. The whole reason why I started speaking, because my mother was murdered because she's black, right? And people will say, it was an unfortunate thing that happened, but we can't skip over the fact that there was a white dude who wanted to start a race war in this country. So he took 9 lives in my church. And some companies, they'll say, Chris, we heard about you from this company or that company, but, we're talking about growth mindset. And I'll say, that's great, but this is also what I speak about as my non-negotiable. And sometimes they'll go a different way, but that's just the life that you live sometimes when you're committed to a mission that's greater than yourself. So it comes with it, unfortunately. Talk about your mom. What kind of woman was she? Yeah. Yeah. My mother was a track coach. She was a children's church pastor. She was a single mother of 3. Ran track in college, like a college athlete. Gave me my athleticism, her and my pops. But, the reason why I do what I do is because of her. I don't want there to be another Dylan Roof that wants to hate me based on my skin color, something I didn't choose, something you didn't choose, right? I don't want that to happen again. And I've seen it happen again, unfortunately. And so now my mission is to stop it from happening.
And every day I have this hashtag that I use. I say, hashtag can't let moms down. Because I've always heard like, it takes a village to raise a child. And now that I'm an adult, got my own family, my own kids, I want people to look at me and say, man, this guy had a hell of a village. And that's my mom. So that's about my mom.
Yeah, that's amazing. She's definitely looking down. Have you had any signs from her? Do you believe in that kind of stuff?
I do, man. I think the first time we were about to have our kid, I had a dream about, her holding our son. So I knew it was a boy.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
That's incredible.
Little stuff like that, man. You just start thinking about the memories. It used to become sad moments, but now they're just memories, and I celebrate those memories when they come.
That's cool. Yeah, my father committed suicide. I've talked about this before on the show. People that are listening, first-time listeners, my father committed suicide when I was 9, and I never got a sign from him. But it's a running joke in our family that I've had 6 dads. It's okay, you can laugh. But so the last one, the 6th one, has sent tons of signs to my mom, who's still alive. Feathers and birds and exotic birds on the neighbor's roof, and like it's birds in the house and ducks in the pool. I mean, this stuff isn't coincidence. So one of the guests that I had on was Stephanie Arnold. So she had worked with Julio Iglesias. She's a producer. And so she had a premonition that she was going to die for 37 seconds. And so she did. And well, the 37 seconds part was not part of it, but she had a premonition she was going to die. And so I was in a room with her on Clubhouse, a social audio app. I'm sure you've heard of it. And so her room is called The Sixth Sense. And so the room is shutting down after I'd ask a question about my 6th dad in terms of shelf life, in terms of can the spirits messages and signs stop at a certain point, or is there no shelf life? And she said, well, if it's meant to continue and there's still messages to be sent and, their purpose is still ongoing, then there is no shelf life. But I had never had a sign from dad number 2, who committed suicide. And so the room is shutting down this evening, this Tuesday evening, and there's something out of the corner of my eye. And I've been going to this dog park for 2 years since the pandemic, 5 acres, there's bats and birds, eagles. And so I didn't notice this bird. I just thought it was a bat. So I walked about 20 yards further and the bird followed me and sat right in front of me. And it was an owl. Never seen an owl in this neighborhood ever. And my last name's Hootner, right? Hoot, Hoot. And so then I stopped the room. I said, hold on, don't go. Because there was 20-second countdown for the Sixth Sense room on Clubhouse. And I told him the story. And then there's mediums in there. There's real doctors in there also. And they share stories about, ghosts and spirits and things like that. And some people may listen to this and think it's a crock of shit. Well, and I don't. I believe in spirits and, things that happen afterwards we just don't know about. And one of them back channeled me afterwards and said, that was your dad saying he's sorry he left the way that he left. And I've never seen him since, and I don't anticipate seeing him ever again. But that was him, needing to have resolution on that. So, things like that are very interesting. I'm glad your mom has sent some signs as I digress. But, those types of things I think may help you keep going and continue with your mission. So that's really cool. How are your brothers doing?
And I've got a brother and a sister.
Oh, brother and a sister. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, they, I lost my mom, lost my dad about a year later. And I've been kind of looking over them, just being big brother. I try to be father figure. And they were like, Chris, shut up. So I'm just big brother. And they're doing well, man. One's about to graduate and one's a freshman playing baseball in college. So
wow, that's sick.
Absolutely.
Can we follow him? Where is he?
Yeah, his name's Caleb Singleton, and he's at a school called Lander. It's a D2 school in
nice.
South Carolina.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Let me ask you a question about baseball stadiums, because I read something about this and I thought it was interesting. Detroit built their stadium in downtown, and Atlanta didn't. Atlanta built theirs sort of in the suburbs. Do you think that was a mistake? Deli is sponsored by City Lokes, CITYLOCS. You can find them online at citylokes.com, where you can go and make your own personalized license plate hats. They're so cool. You got to check them out. And don't forget to enter the code The Sports Deli at checkout for your special 10% discount. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
I do think it was a mistake, man. If I'm gonna be honest, I saw a running joke. It was like, hey, it was on Instagram. It said, hey, I'm going to the Braves game. And, a lot of people from the urban communities are like, all right, let's go to Turner Field, right? And they're thinking they're going down, 5 minutes down the road till they realize, I think it's in Marietta now, which is, a ways out. So, I think anytime a stadium can be in that community, right? If we call it the Atlanta Braves, it needs to be in the heart of Atlanta, if you ask me. So, I think it was a mistake. The reasons behind it, I'm sure there were great reasons behind why they did it, or, the land was X amount or whatever. Yeah. So I think there's reasons, but I do think it was a mistake if you ask me.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Mental health, taboo subject, maybe not as much as it used to be. What was your experience with mental health in the minors? And, do you see Major League Baseball taking the right steps to help professional athletes?
Yeah, I think for me, man, there was about 2 years after my mother was killed. I didn't go to a therapist. I was one of the people that said, hey, I'll just use my sport as my getaway. We hear that oftentimes, but it's not our sport. It's the success in our sport that we're getting away at, right?
Yeah.
I realized that when I started struggling in my sport and said, man, this isn't a getaway anymore. But I think what I could speak on is the Cubs. So what the Cubs offer is they actually had a therapist that would come for free that you could go to. Not just a mental health, not just a mental skills coach, right? Or a performance coach. It was an actual mental health therapist that was at your expense, right? Whenever you wanted to. And I started going once a week when I was playing in the minor leagues. And that's one of the reasons why I love the Cubs, because not every team is doing that. Not every team is putting resources. Yeah, not every team is putting resources in their minor leagues. They'll have their mental skills coach, but they won't have like a licensed therapist. But the Cubs did. That's why, I love that they did that. And it's huge for me. And I think a lot of, I spoke to a team recently, the Marquette's basketball team, I think a couple years ago, and they had a big time player who kind of took a small break from his sport. He just got his mental health in check and ended up coming back and having great success. But it's huge, man. It's tough when people are cursing you out and screaming at you every single day, and they think because you make a little bit of money, then you're not a man. I remember in my life, just being destroyed, and I lost both of my parents, and I'm hanging on to this sport like this is all I got, and you have people just tearing you apart, and it's rough. The way I raise my kids, I'll never let them scream and degrade a player, because that's a real human being. You can talk good about your team, right? Cheer them on, but I will never let my sons curse out a player, talk bad about their family, try to humiliate them. And I know people say it comes with the territory. No, it doesn't. If you sucked at your job, sending emails every single day, for a year straight, you would hate it just like they hate going into work, sucking every single day too. So what if they get paid $5 million? People want to still take their own lives. They don't care about the money when it's that tough and when they're in that deep of a hole. So that's just the way I raise my kids, and the way that I teach players when I do camps and stuff. I always let them know that even though we see these celebrities, these stars, these athletes, they're human beings like everybody else.
Yeah, that's definitely to be applauded. I remember when Shea Hillenbrand came on our show, he talked about his journey to, almost killing himself, but an identity thing where the only thing he knew, former Major League Baseball All-Star, playing in Boston, and he had no idea who he was until he almost killed himself, and he met his new wife and he found himself. So, and in the Black and brown community, it's different too, right? I imagine you're still either roasted or it's taboo, to a lot of people. So that's problematic also.
Well, you think about it, most times like what people say, hey, I'm Chris, I'm a baseball player, right? You know what you do, you don't know who you are. I'm sure you've heard that. But also it's like once you stop playing as an African American, you work, especially growing up and wanting to provide for your family the way that most kids from urban neighborhoods do. It's like when you work your whole life to be able to accomplish something, and you get there and you play for some years, let's say you play 3 years, right, in the NFL. Once you're done playing, you have no idea who you are. You've worked for 17 years straight, working out every single day so you can provide for your family from the sport of football. You know nothing else. That's all you are. And so you can see why people have identity crisis because, they worked their whole life to play in the NFL. They play there for 2 years. And then it's like, well what's next? And that's where
Well,
we get into trouble. Yeah.
yeah. And then while they're playing, I don't know if it's still going on, but Sports Illustrated reported where if you report mental health issues, that you're not going to be paid if you're placed on the injured list. So now you got to lie about stuff, and Ryan Thompson had an emotional breakdown for the Rays, right? And there have been others. We're going to bring another one on the show. Lonnie Murray's a good friend of mine, Dave Stewart's wife, and Dave Stewart was on the show as well. And these things are important. If someone's listening to this for the first time, even though I've talked about it probably 115 times on this show, it's important that people get educated the different layers of either systemic racism or what culturally is different from us, because otherwise you can't get from a point of privilege to truly being anti-racist or understanding how other walks of life actually live, being empathetic and sensitive to those things.
Another thing I think it'd be good to touch on here is I was speaking to an NBA team. I was speaking to the Washington Wizards.
Yeah.
And when I did like a question and answer, one of the players said, "Hey Chris, sometimes I feel like that people are cheering for me when I'm playing, and they're also praying that I don't date or marry their daughter the next day." And he said it's a catch-22 because you have people that you think support you, but if you're not wearing that jersey, if you're just on the streets, they're hoping that you won't get at their daughter. They're hoping that you don't marry and create a family with their offspring. So I think it goes to say, man, we've got a lot of work to still be done. People.
What do you say to that?
Yeah.
What do you say to that? What's your response? You just listen?
True.
Well, no, I know it's true, but what do you say to that for them to break down the walls? If that ever happens, to see that they're more alike than they are different.
Well, number one, I try to figure out why in the world does he hate the fact that he might have a mixed kid, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of times people have a story behind their stance or on what that may be. Maybe he grew up the wrong way, but obviously you got to break the system somewhere. And I've seen it in a lot of places, man. We talk about being an ally, but being an ally means, hey, I wouldn't mind if my son or daughter dated somebody of a different race or maybe of a different faith. It's growing. I know it's people's morals are their morals, but you want to love people, and loving people to me means, hey, I want to grow and not just have friends, but also family that look different than me. And that's just one of my missions as well. I've got a wife that's from Brazil. She's got a white mom, a black dad from Brazil. And she's teaching me stuff I didn't even know about slavery in Brazil, all these things I had no clue about. So the more we can be around people that are different than us, the more we can grow and change that line of thinking. So hopefully that guy didn't have the opportunity to meet somebody, truly, intentionally engage with them. And then, hopefully he'll stop cheering for him on Sunday and hating them on Monday.
Well, I think you said it best in passing. You have to have conversations with people that don't look like you, and you have to be conscious and be deliberate. And really, you should be white at this point because it's not a black issue or a brown issue. It is a white issue because the country is still run by whites. You want to talk about your book?
Yeah, man, it's children's books that I've written, and they're mainly for, I probably speak at 40 or so middle schools, high schools, elementary schools a year.
That's so cool.
And it's all about unity, man. So your kids, I don't know if you got kids, but if you have kids, and I'm talking about how we can come together, live in harmony. And I never felt comfortable sharing with like elementary school students how my mom was taken away. I just said, nah, that's not my place to take their innocence. And so that's where the children's book came about. People like Steph Curry supported it, Viola Davis, Mariska Hargitay, and then the Obama Foundation. They basically got behind my little self-published book, pushed it. They helped me. They helped me out a ton to create impact on so many people knowing about it now.
Let's get to the rapid fire, and then I'll leave the stage for you, man. Great chopping it up. The real Chris Singleton. Okay, Ken Griffey Jr., Mickey Mantle, or Willie Mays?
Ken Griffey Jr.
I love it. Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame?
Yes. So should Barry Bonds.
Yep. One rule change that you would make in baseball if you could.
One rule change. Ooh. Ah, man. I'd never say electronic strike zone, so definitely not that rule. But
Is there a way to speed it up so it's more interesting?
I'd say less time where players are doing 40 different things after the pitch. I think 2 or 3 is needed, right, to kind of reset. Yeah. But a coach of mine said that would help us out a ton, and I think he's right.
Who's the best player you ever faced?
I'll say the hardest pitcher I ever faced is this guy. Where is he from? Right? It's from Cincinnati. Hunter Green, I believe his name was. He threw 101.
Wow.
And, yeah, so that's pretty quick.
Is there a difference between 101 and 95?
Anything over 96 is super fast. So I'd say 96 is the mark where it's like anything over that's fast. But you know what's harder? Seeing 95 with some sync is way harder than seeing 101 straight.
Yeah. I faced one pitcher in the 90s in high school. I batted 380 my senior year, and in the district playoffs, this guy was throwing heat, and I barely got my bat on it, and it was a seeing eye single to right field. But I was just a contact guy. You know what I mean? Like, but man, it was so fast. I couldn't even believe it. Like I think I fouled 3 pitches off over the first base dugout. I barely got around it. I mean, it's oh my God.
Baseball's evolving, man. People are throwing harder and harder and harder, like every single day.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, better food in which city that you've been in?
I'll say Kansas City.
Wow, really?
There's good food there. There's good food in Charleston, where I'm at right now, if you like seafood.
Man, you come out to San Diego, it's on me. There's a place called Crab Hut. Oh, my God. I went to the Final Four in Dallas in 2017, the women's Final Four, and there was a place there that was, I don't remember the name, but seafood is my favorite. What's harder to hide, Vaseline, sandpaper, or corked bat?
I say Vaseline.
Are you a proponent of the new tacky baseball that they're talking about?
I have no idea about a new tacky baseball. Is that to help pitchers so they can't cheat?
Right.
Wow. No, maybe. I don't think
it's going to be experimented next year. Possibly the next year it'll be implemented.
I think I'm kind of getting annoyed by seeing them check them every single inning. I don't really like that. But I don't think pitchers should be able to cheat like they were in the past, right? I know they were saying it helped me not hit somebody, but just play the game the right way and figure out how to throw a fastball without cheating.
What's your favorite baseball moment of all time?
Favorite baseball moment of all time? Getting drafted when I was cleaning a pool. I had a pool cleaning business when I was in college. Got the call. My dad passed away that year. My mom passed away a couple years before. I had a baby on the way.
Wow.
Brother and sister living with me while I'm in like the whole 9 yards. So it was ecstatic. Yeah.
That's amazing. How was your experience in the minors?
I loved it, man. I was making no money, $1,200 a month before tax.
Wow.
With family, which is definitely not enough. And they're making some strides with minor league baseball. I see that they just said that MLB has to pay for all the housing now.
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
Which was cool. A lot of my buddies are still playing AAA. Some of them are big leaguers now, but that's big. But yeah, it was tough financially with a guy with the family of 4. I loved playing, man. I got to see, places in Illinois that I wouldn't have played. Places that I think it was like Cedar Rapids, Iowa that I played. I would have never gone there.
Yeah.
I played in Oregon for a little while. In Eugene, we're at the University of Oregon's field when I was playing in the minor. Like different places I probably wouldn't have gone to just to go, to be honest.
Well, and there's communities in those minor league cities. I mean, they love it. They love it.
Even in Charleston, man, we got a minor league team here, which I was telling you about, and people wrap their arms around our team because we're in the community.
That's awesome. Sunflower seeds or chewing gum?
Chewing gum.
Interesting. Should chewing tobacco be banned from Major League Baseball?
I wouldn't say banned. I don't think that would ever happen. People would just fake it, or they just keep using it. But larger fines would stop so many people from doing it.
It's so frustrating to watch. It's such a bad example. Can you give us your version of Harry Caray's 7th inning stretch and sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" for everybody?
I can't do that, but I will say that I've met Bill Murray tons of times. He's one of the owners for the minor league team in Charleston where I live.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you talk about a grade A guy when it comes to being an owner of a minor league baseball team.
Wow.
I know he's cool with him, so I want to mention that.
Man, if I had a choice between Bill Murray or former, it was a defensive end for the Lions, right?
Robert Porcher, yeah.
Yeah. Man, that would be a tough call. If you asked me that question, if you flipped it around and asked me a rapid fire question, who would I rather have on the show? Man, that's tough. I might lean to Bill Murray.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Murray is obviously
he's a legend.
Name.
Oh man,
yeah, he's big time.
That's classic. He's big time. Favorite baseball player of all time?
I'd say Barry Bonds, man. Barry Bonds, favorite baseball player of all time.
Man, when you're getting intentionally walked, I think that was the biggest sign of respect. It was how many times he got intentionally walked. In the weirdest scenarios that you'll never see again. Yeah. Yes. Bases loaded.
Yeah. And they just did an E60 on him. There was an E60 done on me and my mom and my story. I think they just did an E60 or 30 for 30 on him, which I thought was a great watch. You know, we saw the things, unfortunately, that, we went from looking like everybody else to getting pretty big. And it was pretty obvious that some things were going on.
Yeah.
But man, he was just a great baseball player.
Oh.
And I want to see him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Likewise. Is Hot Dog?
I'd rather see him before Pete Rose. I'd rather see him in the Hall of Fame before Pete Rose, if you ask me.
I'm trying to digest that for a second, because one thing wasn't illegal during his play and one was. So why that answer?
I'd say this. I think Barry Bonds is the best baseball player of all time. If you ask me, the best baseball player of all time. I don't think Pete Rose is the best baseball player of all time. That's why.
So, but what's your response to one was illegal internally and one was not? It was when he was a manager. Well, that we know of.
Well, you answer that question, but I'd just say because he's my favorite player of all time. It's probably
I got you.
You know.
What was it? Because it was a sign of the times and everybody was doing it, so everybody gets a pass kind of thing.
Everybody was doing it, but he also was. You look at him. I think he had 500 home runs and 500 stolen bases.
Yeah.
Before any of that, I want to say so.
Right.
Just he was unreal before, and he's my favorite player, man. So
yeah, no,
I'm biased.
What's harder, winning 25 games, stealing 100 bases, or hitting 20 triples in a season?
20 triples, I'd say.
Man,
the hardest.
Is that because of the design of the new stadiums compared to the old stadiums?
Well, no, I think, most people don't admire that and don't hustle out of the box anymore. It's like you kind of pimp it a little bit, but 20 triples would be, you're booking it.
You are booking it. Pancakes, waffles, or French toast?
I'd say French toast.
Wow. Have you ever had French toast with challah bread?
No, I haven't.
Bro, it's a Jewish bread that's thicker. You gotta try it. So if you come out here, we're going to Crab Hut. You're in Dago. We're going to Crab Hut and we're going to DZ Aiken's. It's a Jewish deli, and they got fire French toast.
Okay.
All right, deal. Jordan or LeBron? A couple more.
LeBron. My era. So yeah.
Candy or popcorn at the movies?
Candy.
What candy?
I'm a big Reese's kind of guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
You like dark chocolate or no?
The special limited, whatever it's called.
So if you're in your car driving, what song are you singing by yourself?
If I'm in my car singing by myself, what would I be listening to?
What genre?
I'd say either some R&B or some type of rap.
Interesting. LL Cool J or Fat Boys?
I'll say LL.
KRS-One or Big Daddy Kane?
KRS-One.
Wow, edutainment.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Eminem or Jay-Z?
Jay-Z. Jay-Z's my favorite rapper of all time.
That answered that question. Verlander or Scherzer?
Scherzer.
Wow. They're both Hall of Famers?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Roger or Pedro?
God,
Pedro's wind up and his delivery was so compact. Ugh.
That's a good one. You got me on that one. I can't answer that one rapid fire right there. I'll say Pedro because I like watching him on baseball shows now. He's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a trip. Bob Gibson or Dwight Gooden?
I'd say Bob Gibson.
Maddox or Clayton Kershaw?
Maddox.
Man, he could paint a plate
Absolutely.
like no one other. Johnny Bench, Pudge, or Mike Piazza?
Pudge.
Wow, interesting. Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, or Dave Chappelle?
Eddie Murphy. Dave Chappelle's close though.
Yeah. Did you agree with what he did?
What do you mean by what he did? Is his stand-up?
Well, he just did a stand-up, but people were, saying that he should be canceled and all that stuff.
Yeah, they were destroying him. I saw that. I think his reasoning behind it, I think, was good reasoning. He was trying to say how Black people have always been I think he was basically trying to say, hey, you can be Black and not be heroed, right? But you can be gay or trans or whatever, and you'd be heroed before African Americans, is what he was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when you say anything like that, especially even in stand-up, you're going to get destroyed. And it was sad to see that.
He's had a lot of people support him, though.
Yeah, no, he does.
At the same time, yeah.
Even Netflix still supports him, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Harder name to spell: Mark Teixeira or Tim Kurchin?
Kurchin. I don't even know how to spell that.
Kurkjian. Never
would have got it.
Oh man, if you could have any 5 people at your dinner table of all time in any realm, sports, who would be at your dinner table?
I want Gandhi. I want my mom. I want Jesus.
Wow.
I want Elon Musk.
Interesting. Wow. How about Michelle Obama?
Barack Obama.
Oh, I said Michelle. You said Barack. Isn't that interesting? Okay. That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, it's truly been an honor. I know you're busy. You said you're on the road half the year, pretty much, and being a dad. And how about your kids? How are they doing?
Good, man. One's 10 weeks old, brand new.
Wow.
One's 4 years old.
Wow, that's amazing. And how's your wife? Good,
man. We just went to Legoland yesterday. Had some fun.
Oh, I love it.
She's resting up right now.
That's cool. Well, anything else for the good of the cause? Man, I just love these conversations, and hopefully people got some value out of it, and learn some things just about how to be more empathetic and bridge these gaps, even if politically we're on different sides of the aisle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I'll say this. I think relationships will always supersede being politically correct. So if you have relationships, when I can ask a friend of mine, hey, what does keeping kosher even mean, right? That means a lot. And so I don't say something that's idiotic or might get me canceled. I have a relationship that supersedes being PC. In a world where that's always changing, you need to have those relationships. Otherwise, you may say something and unfortunately, people don't know your character. So they write you off because of it.
Well, your late mother and father taught you well, as well as your brother and your sister. Truly appreciate you coming on. Glad we worked it out, and continued success. And I hope to see you with a seat at the table in a leadership position in Major League Baseball, similar to Ken Griffey Jr. and others at that level, because that's, what you deserve. And just the way you carry yourself is because of your parents. So that's just an amazing testament to them. I want to get people's stories out there, and it's a safe space. As an anti-racist equality podcast, it's important to me to be an ally in any way that I can. And we're mobilizing and doing other things, with the NFL. I'm working with Coach Jackson, former NFL head coach, and doing some other things. We've helped people get off the streets who are homeless, former NBA players. So we're not just, bringing people in and that's the end of it. So anything I can do to help you get the word out in any way, let us know.
Thank you for the opportunity, brother.
All right, man. We'll keep in touch, and I'm going to hold you to it, man. You're going to be my co-host for one of those two.
All right. I think, I call him Uncle Bob.
Yeah.
He'd be acceptable to do it. Bill Murray, he don't even have a cell phone.
All right. Much love and respect. All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
The real Chris Singleton, everyone, right there.
I love it.
That was fascinating. So if you have any questions, always feel free to send us an email to thesportsdeli@gmail.com. And you can always DM me at Mike Hootner on Instagram or on TikTok, and on Twitter at Michael Hootner. For Dr. J and Coach K, I'm Hootie Hoot. Black Lives Matter. We bet on women heavily here in the Sports Deli. Contact your local politicians for anything that you feel needs to be changed, as well as your state politicians. Stop the Asian hate. Stop the bullying. And until next time, remember, it takes a village. Much love, everybody. Peace.